Gospel according to Mark, the 4th chapter. When evening had come, Jesus said to the disciples, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with them. A great storm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and the sea and said, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was dead calm. And he said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" The Gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, once again we just ask for your Holy Spirit's presence as we talk about fear and faith on this Father's Day. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, it must have been quite the storm for these disciples to be that scared, considering 4 of them were seasoned fishermen. Peter, Andrew, James, and John were professionals at dealing with bad weather on this sea. It's what they did for a living, and they've been doing it since their youth. And sudden storms on the Sea of Galilee are very common. This body of water sits some 650 feet below sea level. It's surrounded by these tall hills or small mountains, and with the Mediterranean Sea close by, these storms blow in quickly and frequently. And the disciples were used to them. So this storm was probably the worst storm that any of them had ever been in. And it scared them tremendously. You know, oftentimes when I hear a gospel lesson or I'm reading the Bible, I try to picture myself there at the scene. You know, what it must have been like to be a disciple. I mean, can you imagine yourself in this little boat out in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the night, in the middle of this treacherous storm? Wow. I mean, everything started out okay. Jesus was just coming off a preaching frenzy, and the crowds had become almost overwhelming, and he was beat. He was extremely exhausted. You ever felt like that? Just so exhausted from all the demands placed on you in your life that you could just lay down anywhere and go to sleep and sleep through anything? That's how Jesus felt. I mean, he was human just like you and I, and he needed some sleep, and he needed it now. So he says to the disciples, he says, "Hey, let's go to the other side." Thinking, I'm sure, that, hey, this would be a good way for me to get away from the crowds, catch some Z's, and go minister to the people on the other side of the sea. And I'm sure the disciples are thinking, well, okay, it is going to be dark here pretty soon, but we've been on this sea many a times at night, and these storms, they usually never occur at nighttime, and besides that, we got Jesus with us. So, yeah, let's go. So off they go, and Jesus quickly falls asleep. Now, they've got 7 miles to go to get to the other side. And so I'm imagining that they're probably about halfway across when it gets pitch dark outside and things start to take a turn for the worse. And at first, there was no apparent signs of a storm, just some light winds and some calm waves. But then the weather started to change. The wind started to pick up, and the sea started to swell, and you could just smell it in the air that a storm was maybe approaching. And then the winds got a little stronger, and whitecaps started to form on the surface. And sure enough, these disciples knew from their experience that a storm was just about upon them. And then the rain started to fall, and gusts of wind started to hit them, and things started to get worse real quickly. The winds were getting stronger and heavier, and it was to the point where they couldn't even hardly stand against them. And all they could do is try to ride out these waves that were now at 10 feet tall and growing. But the rain was getting heavier and more constant, and the wind was blowing it sideways, and the storm was really starting to surge now, and it didn't even seem possible. But the wind was even getting stronger and stronger, and now the waves are at 15 and 20 feet tall, and they're crashing into the boat. These disciples are scared. Fear has set in, and now the waves have turned monstrous, and the rain is torrential, and thunder and lightning is exploding all over them, and it's just absolutely violent right now. And they know that any second the boat is going to capsize, and they're all going to drown and die. And finally, one of them grabs a hold of Jesus and shakes him and says, "Teacher, don't you even care that we're about to die here?" And Jesus, he wakes up and he shouts, "Peace, be still." And everything immediately stopped. And this great sense of relief and peace came over the disciples. Can you picture yourself there? Feeling this unbelievable sense of peace and relief. That's the kind of peace that only Jesus can give to you. And they were in great awe. And the next thing Jesus says is, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" You see, fear got the best of these disciples. How quick they were to forget all the love and the power of Jesus. All these examples he had given them leading up to this day. They had witnessed him perform miracle after miracle, seen his authority over demons and sickness, watched him rescue people from death and danger. He had given them proof after proof after proof of his power. And this morning, we should examine our own hearts. I'm sure there have been times when the storms have been raging in your life that you have questioned God's concern for you. You may have not said it out loud, but I'm sure deep down inside you've said, "Lord, don't you even care what's happening to me right now?" I mean, we've all been there at times. And this morning, Jesus teaches us that fear is simply a lack of faith. And he does not promise exemption from the normal storms of life. The Bible says that storms will come our way. In fact, you're in one of three places today. You're either in the middle of a raging storm right now in your life, or you've just come out of a storm, or you're about to go into one. Sudden storms are a part of life. You know, things can be fine one moment, and then the next the bottom falls out. 1 minute you can be enjoying fine weather, and the next you find yourself in the middle of a terrible storm. One phone call, one 24-hour period of time, one tick of the clock, and there you are in the storm of your life. And when they come, oftentimes they're severe, and they cause us great anguish and pain, sickness, disappointments. Someone you love has been called away by death, and it leaves you grief-stricken and shaken by your loss. Others may be engulfed in a storm of sin. And when sin enters our hearts, it always comes in as a warm, pleasant breeze, promising us the best. But soon it displays its darker side, and it'll rip through your life leaving a trail of damage and destruction that can only be repaired by Jesus and his forgiveness. Some of you may be in that storm today. Jesus never promised that there would be no storms in your life. He simply said, I'll be with you. And the stronger your faith is, the less fear you will have when these storms come your way. It'll be far easier to weather them and get through them. Because there is no storm that heaven cannot calm. There is no problem so great that Jesus cannot fix it. But our faith needs to be strong. And we need to continue to grow in our faith. And the way we do that is by spending more time with God. We should pray at night before we go to bed. Pray in the morning when we wake up. Talk to God during the day. You see, it's your effort and intent that counts. And no matter how much pain comes your way, no matter how much Satan or your enemies try to defeat you, they will not succeed. But it is only faith that can end your sufferings. It is only God that can end your sorrows. It is only God that can end your pain. It is only God that can end your hardships and bring you through these storms and give you the joy and the love and the peace that he desires for you. There's no superstition here. God has destined you to make it. And all your agonies can be diverted in victory and prosperity will be incoming and be in abundance. You know, it's just fitting today that this gospel lesson falls on Father's Day. Because I'm sure many of you, just like me, grew up with a father that helped get you through many a storms in your life. And when this day comes around every year, I think about my dad. And I think about him a lot. Think about all the good times we've had together and all the things he's done for me. And I also think about what the best thing is that he ever did for me was. You ever do that? You ever think about what the best thing is that your father or your mother ever did for you in your life? You know, every time I think about that, I always come back to this one thing. You see, I was one of the fortunate ones. You know, I grew up with a dad that was home every evening, was always there for me, did many great things for me. And I'm sure that some of you probably grew up without a father or without a mother. And God bless all the single parents that have had to play both roles in life. As being a father myself, even though it's very, very rewarding, I know that at times it can be very demanding and very trying. And for those of you raising children, please listen to me here as I tell you what the best thing is that my father ever did for me. And it's not some material thing that he gave to me or bought me. No, it's not all the times that he's bailed me out of some financial crisis. It's not the fact that he helped me buy my first car. It's not all the camping trips and the fishing trips that he's taken me on. It's not all the great things he's done for me and all the neat places and the good times we've had together. And although I'm very thankful for all those things, it's not any of that. You see, the greatest thing that my father ever did for me was that he made me conscious of the reality of God. He made me believe that there really was a God. And not by preaching me sermons or giving me speeches or some father-to-son talk, but rather by the calmness of his personality, which I witnessed every day growing up as a boy. Watching him always put God first in his life. Many evenings I would walk downstairs and see him sitting there in his chair, reading his Bible. And his faith and assurance about life taught me to seek after and come to know a Father much greater than him, our Father in heaven, a God who expected you to be true and faithful in all your transactions with your fellow man. A God whose love could be a guide in your life. And his love for me mirrored God's own heart. And there's no greater reward in life than for a father to take his stand and uphold the values of the Lord with integrity and with grace. And his commitment to God and his undeniable faith in Jesus Christ was, is, and always will be the greatest gift he could have ever given to me. May God bless you